Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. This talk is actually really close to my heart. This isn't something that I talk about a lot on a scale like this. It really depends on who I'm talking to and the audience that I'm around. Usually it's like a one-on-one thing, because what I found in communities like this is that a lot of us kind of share some of the same sentiments, some of the same challenges, and whatnot. And so these situations like this allow us to actually bring those to the audience and kind of, make more of us more aware. It's like, hey, it's not just you that's kind of dealing with this, or it's not just you that's, going through these same situations or have these same challenges. So I'm rather excited to kind of talk about it. And as I go through these slides, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. I want to make this more of a conversational talk than it is just like talking to you. All right. So who is this for? This talk really is for anybody who is, starting a business or thinking about starting a side business while still, 1 foot in with their current job, their current day job. Those that are, like I said, thinking about maybe starting something in the future, or if you already do, and managing that, plus kids if you have them, plus a spouse, a partner, whatever, all the other elements that go along with just like not the typical, hey, these kids just started college and are dropping out of college and starting and launching a business, and everything just seems to be working for them because they could just work on ramen noodles and then, a year later they're just going to be millionaires. This isn't for them. This talk isn't for you if that's the case. This is for more those of us that, maybe got into things a little later, maybe decided to go back to school. Like myself, I went to school, went back to college after 2 years of being in college and not really knowing what I wanted to do. And then when I did decide to go back, I knew what I wanted to do, and I was focused to do it, and and made it through, with the best grades that I've ever had in my life. And so, what I really want to go across here is, well, let me talk a little bit about me before I get into it. So me, I started Design Theory in late 2008. It's not the first business that I started, but I've been in business, let's say, we've been together for 15 years. So well over 16 years. I started off doing, computer repair, mobile computer repair, when computers were kind of still, in their infancy. You could just walk up to any, big box store and kind of buy them. Purchase them online was the thing. I was actually the person who was building them, fixing them, and actually, there at your door doing that stuff. 4 Geek Squad was a thing, right? It was enjoyable to me. It was fun. I got my hands into things, and it was great. And quickly, over time, when I realized that computers were not really the thing, I was getting more questions for web design, and so that's how I got into that. I kind of stumbled into it, self-learning. Along the years, we developed 3 kids. We've been married for almost 15 years this year, and juggling 3 kids, school projects, home stuff, chores, and everything else. All of that was all in the background of me. On top of that, my performance level and everything that was going on with my day job, and the aspirations that I had with taking Design Theory to the levels that I wanted to take it to. So what I really want to get into now is shared responsibilities. When it comes to our household, I think when we first got started with Design Theory, really, it was more of like, oh, okay, this is something that you can kind of do, after hours, when you come home from work and dinner's already set, kids are in bed, or we would normally be watching TV, it's like, okay, well, you watch this show, and then I'll be over here on the other side of the couch or at the table working on this thing. And quickly, I would say within the first year, if not within the first couple of months, we started to see where it was like, hey, you're spending a lot more time here and less time with me here. Things are going on with the kids. There's things that that you used to do in the house that you're not doing. There's other things that need your attention that you're not focused on. And in my mind, I was thinking, well, I'm building something great, right? I'm moving forward. I can see where I want to go. I had, first couple clients under my belt, so I'm feeling great, right? I'm feeling excited about that, and I'm thinking about, oh man, how's this going to look, and what's this going to be like in the next year? I'm going to, probably quit my job at the end of this year, and I'm going to step out and just do this. I'm going to have my own, design studio with my, name up there, and, people are going to drive by and be like, I need to go see him. And all of those things are floating in my mind. What wasn't floating in my mind was all the shared responsibilities that we had around the house that was slowly starting to fall to either just one person and not shared between the two of us, right? And so maybe that's dishes, maybe that's dinner, maybe that's lawn care, maybe that's what's going on with the cars, maintaining the cars. Laundry was a big thing because I used to do the laundry for the whole house, and then if anybody's like me, where it's like you start the laundry, walk away, right, and then 2 hours later you're like, I didn't put them in the dryer. So then those things start to happen and whatnot. And so what we started to do was we I don't know how many years it was, and I'm sorry, my wife is actually here. I keep referring to her, but I don't know how many years it was in before we actually sat back and had a conversation like, hey, we need to figure out how this is actually going to work. We're kind of flying by the seat of our pants here, where it's like you're telling me you're busy today, but then I'm seeing you like researching stuff on YouTube. I'm seeing you watching videos. I'm seeing you, sending emails or whatnot, and I don't know how important that really is. And in my mind, I'm like, if I'm at the computer, I'm busy. Don't bother me. I'm doing stuff. But in the infancy of what we started, right, we weren't really getting paid for all of that stuff. And so the talk that was before was really, really important, I think, and I hope that this is a companion talk to that. But all the busy stuff that I was doing, I wasn't equating that to say, oh, am I actually being paid for this? Or is this worth my time? Because I'm going to spend 2 hours on this R&D or whatever for this client to try to give them more value in what I'm offering, but am I actually charging them for that? And is my time worthwhile? I wasn't really thinking about that. In my mind, I'm like, I've got a paying client, do it all. And so what we did was we kind of had an idea of what our responsibilities should be and really redefined. We said, hey, all right, if you're going to be doing this, then that means that you should only be doing this between these certain hours of the day, the night, weekends, whatever. So that way I can expect you to be here with me to do this. And the kids can expect you to be around for this. And the kids can expect to say, okay, well, if Daddy's at the desk over here, let's not bother him. Let's stay over here on this side of the house. Or let's stay over there. Let's not ask him any questions or whatnot between those time frames, right? Those are, for me, and I think for us, those are really, really beneficial because whenever, for example, let's say that the trash is overflowing or, is at the brim where it needs to be taken out, I know that's something that I have to do. And if I allow myself to just, stay deep in and think that it's something that she's going to have to do, then there's other things that I know that she's not going to be able to complete because those were things that I had committed to say, I'm definitely going to do these things on a daily basis, weekly basis, or whatever. You can rely on me for these things, okay? Define work zones. This was really, really key at the beginning because the house that we had at the time, our main living room was downstairs. And it was a split level ranch type house. We were in Connecticut, and where my desk was, and I think we went and bought a desk to put in the back corner of the room. In the front corner of the room, and right behind me was the kids area. It was all their toys. It was the big screen TV that was over there, and then it was the couches, and it was like, really comfortable to be everywhere around except for where I was. And I think for us, well, at the time, we really didn't say, hey, we're going to clear a whole room for you. We didn't really have the space to do that. And so by having, now we have defined spaces where we use, say, hey, you're going to work here. This is your desk. Nobody comes around here. There's no playing here. There's no dual purpose for this. I've seen some of my colleagues that have, let's say, like a kitchen table or a dining room table, and it's like, hey, I'm going to work here. But if you work there and you set your stuff up there, then you've got to clear it, and you've got to, you got to clear it for dinner time or whatever. When people are coming over, then your stuff is all out, and it's got to be put away, and that's just not productive at all. And one of the other things about not having a defined work zone is that when it's time for you to get to work, you have to now think, oh, well, I've got to go clean this off first, then go bring this out, then set this up, and then and then I can actually get to go and do it. And by the time you actually do it, it's probably 15, 20 minutes in, the gumption that you had, or the will that you had to go and sit down and work, probably evaporated by that time, right? And so that becomes a down or uphill battle, really, because from day to day or week to week or whatever that you decide your schedule to be, to sit down and do this side work, it becomes extremely, extremely difficult. At the time, now we both work from home, but at the time, we both worked in the office. So our schedule was like, hey, take the kids to, or I take the kids to daycare, you pick them up. And so I didn't have both my work stuff, my work stuff, and then my side business stuff in the same space. Now, it's in the same space. And it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, all depending, and that's another subject we can get into later on. But essentially, by having a defined area, it's like I know when I go upstairs and I sit down and open up my laptop, I'm ready to work. There is no other distractions. There is also an understanding of like, hey, I'm here. Don't bother me while I'm here, okay? Defined work hours. This was also key. When I first got started, I was only working, let's say, between 9 and 2 in the morning. And I'd get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. They would start, and everything would have to happen. I'd get to my regular day job, and I'm doing what I have to do over there. And the funny thing about starting something on the side while having your day job is like you're there at your day job, and you're doing what you have to do. But you're always fantasizing about what you're going to do when you get home. One of the things that I actually ended up doing, and this I learned a little bit later, maybe several months, if not a year later, is that while I was at work, even though I wanted to do things and I couldn't, I would keep a notepad with me. And I would write down all the things that I wanted to do when I got home. So that way when I did get home, I got right to it. It wasn't like this, let me sit here and go through my emails and see what I have to do first, and then I'll decide, and then and before I knew it, because that's how I used to do it, before I knew it, it's like an hour in, and all I did was check emails, and the family's looking at me like, what are you doing? So by having this notepad, what I would do is I'd write down, and at the end of the night also, I'd also write down the things that I accomplished and things I did not accomplish, and then the next day, or maybe if I got up a little earlier, before everybody got up to work, I would go ahead and get in too, and that would happen as well, because all of those were things that I could do within my capacity. It didn't interrupt anybody else, right? And so having a notepad to say, hey, this is what has to be done, this is what I completed, and this is what I plan on doing maybe today, tomorrow, and so on, was super beneficial in terms of saving me time. Outsourcing. This was talked about a little bit before, and I had plenty of instances of trying this out and seeing where things worked and seeing where things didn't. In order to really in order to really grow, you have to deviate or delegate your responsibilities. And sometimes when we see outsourcing, just the term by itself, we think, oh wow, that's just me hiring somebody that's not even remotely close to where I live, maybe not in my country, maybe not in my state, maybe not even in my city, and trying to work past the language barrier, time barrier, and all these other things. Beyond all of those hiccups, or beyond all of those smaller challenges, are huge areas for you to really take your business to the next level. And what I mean by that is to say that there are mundane things that we do, both on the work side and the side business side, where we can delegate tasks. At your day job, if there's things that you're doing that it's like, hey, I could probably save myself, from having even coming in the office an hour every single day, just by delegating a couple of these things, or maybe having these things done, doubling up on my time the day before, so that way maybe by Friday I've only got to come into work for a few hours or half a day versus being there all day. Do that. On the side business side of things, it's like, yeah, maybe it is where I can find somebody overseas, and I've done that, worked with somebody who was overseas and did the time barrier thing and all that stuff, and it did work for a while. Over time, what worked out for me in our business was working with people who were nearby that we can actually go talk to, we can sit down and have coffee with. Even if it was like a 20-minute drive, it's like, we're going to meet you in the middle here, but at the very least, we can continue a conversation, we can have a face-to-face, we have the same ideas or goals or vibe, if you will. And so that way, and we're not meeting on a daily basis, right? We're probably meeting maybe once a month, maybe twice a month or something like that, just to kind of touch base, just to kind of have the same understanding. However, by doing that, it alleviated me from worrying about a lot of the mundane things, or even the things that I thought that I was good at, and bringing in somebody else that was much better. Like for us now, we have a lead developer who lives probably about maybe about 40 minutes from where we are, right? And we're from Orlando, so maybe about 40 minutes from where we are. We've got a graphic designer that's probably about 20 minutes away, and then content, SEO. What else? Some marketing things we outsource to people that are also in our community that do things better than we do. And one of the things that I learned for myself was when I got started, I did everything, right? So I did the banking, I did the marketing, I did the conceptual idea down to paper, and then trying to see how we can get this stuff done. I did the design, I did the development, and once I started to kind of pass these things off, I started to realize I'm not that great at design. I'm not that great at development. I'm not that fast at it. I don't need to be that fast at it. Somebody else can do it better, and they like it. And then I started to see, well, wait a minute. I actually am starting to understand areas where I really like to be versus areas that was like, well, I'm doing it because it needs to be done, but I don't really like doing it. And so if I don't like doing it, and depending on what I'm charging it to actually get that job done, my best effort may or may not be there. Whereas if I could just say, hey, shoot this email off, hey, this client wants this, that, and the third, and I can interpret exactly what needs to be said because I'm there, right? I'm communicating with the client, and I know the technical speak that I need to send off to, to my developer, to my designers, or whatever, so that way they know exactly what they need to do to get the job done. And there's very little communication that has to happen because we've met on a regular basis. We have the vibe. We understand how they work. They understand how I work, and so that really does help a lot. So I would say if you really want to start to grow your business, if you're kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, outsourcing is really going to help you to get there. And then again, if you need to pull that back and it's like, okay, this is working, and now that I can go full time, then maybe, okay, I can do this more because I enjoy doing it. But if I don't, and somebody else can do it better for me, and I can toss that responsibility, do it. Life goals. How many of you guys are on Instagram? So if you ever follow the hashtag life goals, you see a myriad of different things, and it's kind of like an anecdotal joke a lot of times when you start to get around people and you start to talk, especially in our community when we talk to other creatives, other developers, other business owners, and somebody says, like, oh man, yeah, I'm gonna go on vacation, and it's like, vacation? I don't even know what vacation sounds like. When's the last time I was on vacation? And then somebody else is like, yeah, I want to get there too, but life goals. And it's like, it really shouldn't be that way, but it is. One of the things that we had to do in our household was to define what our goals should be across the spectrum. What are our family goals? What do we want to see for our kids? How do we want to see them use some of the resources that we have to then take what their creativity levels are and then take that to the next level for them and kind of nurture that? What are some things that internally that we want to do individually between between partners? What do I want to see and what do you want to see? And do those things align? Maybe they don't, and that's okay. But maybe they do, or maybe there's things that are accompanying to where it's like, hey, we can do these together, and we can see this instead of being in 5 years, we can do this in 3 years. Some of the bigger things that I in our relationship that I hate to talk about, that I'm working my way better to talk about, is our budget, right? Our family budget, and then our business budget. And now the two of us actually have our own businesses outside of our full-time job. So when you talk about, like, it's not even just the one person, now we're talking about two people, and both of us have ventures that we're doing, and our own, and individual goals for those things. And some things cross-pollinating a little bit there, but there's a different vision for that. One of the things that I learned off really, really early too, and especially in terms of goals, was when I started my first business, I thought, oh, I can't wait till I get a partner. And when I get a partner, it's going to be like this, and the goals are going to be here, and the vision's going to be there. And I got a partner, and it was great at first. And then probably about a year or so in, I started to realize, well, I have this vision, and I see how hard I want to work, and I'm seeing what they're not doing. And so I started to become resentful and whatnot. But did I have the conversation with them? Maybe not as well as I should have. Maybe not as much as I should have. Maybe I wasn't as clear as I wanted to be in terms of what I wanted from them or whatnot, what the goals should have been between the two of us. But I can tell you, in terms of a household, it's crucial that the two of you know, or actually not just the two, but everybody in the household know what the goals actually should be. What are we working towards? And is it working? And also, do we have a time limit on this, right? Okay, so I say I'm going to do this, part-time, after hours and this, that, and the third. But how long do I really want to do this for? How long can I do this for? How long can we sustain not going to these places or not doing these things and not going out to the park or not being able to, or putting aside our family budget for this business budget. You know, so all of these are goals that you really want to kind of set and have an understanding within your whole household, not just between the parents, if you will. Dealing with irritations. This one's kind of hard for me because I am still growing and I'm still learning and I'm still trying to get better at it. But I can tell you one of the things that took me several years to understand was identifying stress. How many of you deal with stress? I'm going to assume everybody does. But for those of you that are dealing with stress, how many of you have identified areas or have you identified when stress is actually showing its face? So for me, it took me years to do that. I don't know how long it took you guys to get there, but for me, it took me years to get there. And because what would happen to me is like I would let stress manifest. And the way that I understand stress now is it's not just something that we just kind of talk about as an invisible thing. For me, and what I've seen is actually a real thing. It can manifest, in you physically, and that attitude or that feeling can actually project into your household, into your family, into your business, into your job, and into everything. And you may not realize it, but it's actually there. And so that would be, for me, one of the main things that I say, watch out for those types of irritations and see where you could identify that, curb it, and then address it. And if you need to, bring in your family to help you. Bring in a coach to help you. Bring in a mentor to help you. This line is kind of a joke for me because when I found it, I was like, that's exactly how I feel. And so when I'm upset, I feel like that, but I don't look like that. So when I'm mad and I'm frustrated or whatever, I look probably like a nerd or whatever. But in my mind, when I'm upset, this is exactly how upset I get. In my mind, I look like that, but that's not what it is. Having full communication, with your partner and really with your household is imperative, I think, because when you are dealing with these irritations and they don't know about it, your attitude towards them is to them they see it. You may not. You may be thinking you're hiding it and you're holding it back, and it's like for me, I always say I put a lot of my emotions and things on a shelf, and I'll deal with them later. But they see the shelf, and the shelf is actually, that whole thing is taking over the whole shelf, if not the whole room. And if anything, it's ready to knock over and break everything that you have that's of value in that room. But you don't think so, right? And so being able to come down from where you are and be, how do you say, what's the word I'm looking for? Vulnerable. Being vulnerable to say, yeah, this is how I'm feeling right now. Can you help me with this? Or what do you think about this? I can't tell you how much that helps diffuse the situation. And even if there's not a solution, and a lot of times there probably is, because when you're in it, you're doing it all, right? And you really can't see past what you're doing. But somebody else to have a different perspective sometimes can give you that solution, but a lot of times can give you a break, give you a diffusion of what's going on. Open communication with if you have a business partner, you need to have open communication there as well. Because they could be going, they thinking we're all going together, and really they're going this way and you're going that way, and they don't know that. And so because they're going the other direction, you could fall resentful to that. You could be upset with that, and if they don't know that that's how you feel, then they can start to feel some kind of things, right? And so productivity starts to drop, and all types of stuff start to happen. They start to have stress, you start to have stress, no one's talking, everybody's upset, and we all look like this, or think that we look like this, and really, it's not what it is. Juggling work and side work. This is something that I don't know that anybody can necessarily teach you, but I do feel like it is something that you learn over time. Every business is different, every person is different. And so, for me, a lot of this I'm coming to a maturity level after almost 12 years of design theory and being in business at this capacity. There's more things I'm learning now, and that's also probably because I'm getting older, and I feel like time is important to me. I feel like what I spend my time on and what I'm not doing, what I'd rather be doing, is very important to me as well. And so, keeping an eye on your, what's of value for you for keeping your performance high is really key. So when you think about your day job, even though you have your one foot in and one foot out, you still have to be just as diligent, just as good, you know, as you are at home with your side business. And you have to keep your performance up, because otherwise you have, you know, you have reviews, you have raise times, and you have all these other times where, you know, people are looking at you, not just management, but other people looking at you. When you start to slack, people will see that, and people will take notice of that. And so you have to be able to juggle that, and that's, you know, one of the balls that you're holding there. You have to kind of juggle that with everything else. Do you have an exit strategy? This is something that I learned very early in time. Scott is actually one of my mentors, and he's actually sitting here, and I appreciate him for that. But very early in time when we first started talking, he asked me, he said, well, what's your exit strategy? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. What is it? What is that supposed to be? He was like, well, what happens when you get to a point to where you no longer want to do this anymore? Or what happens to you if you get to a point to where you want to sell, somebody wants to buy? What are you going to do with everybody that you've been carrying with you? Your clients, your contractors, whatever. What are you going to do? I haven't thought about that. I was like, I don't know. I'm just trying to think about what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not thinking 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. But it's important to have that in mind, because as you also need to have an exit strategy for your day job, right? Because if you created a side business, in your mind you're thinking, well, this is going to be the thing that's going to supplement all of my income. Well, how am I going to get out of this job? Is it going to be a 2-week and I'm ready to go? Or are they going to say, you know, we're not ready for you to go? You're too far in deep. You've done too many things. You started too many processes. You can't. Or you're the breadwinner, and the insurance is running through you. The benefits are running through you. All of these options and things are running through you. How are we going to, you know, deal with that? And then also, again, having that conversation with, you know, with your household. What is that going to look like? Focusing on the money. Again, this is not something that that I typically liked to do. When I first got started, actually, the split that we had with my partner, with my first venture, we would do, I think it was 30-30, and then I think it was 35-35, and then 30. So 35, whatever our profits were, with everything, we each kept 35, and then we split the last 30% down to the business. And it seemed to make sense up until it gets to the point where it's like, well, wait a minute. If I'm pulling in all of the new business, and you're not pulling the weight, but then I'm splitting this with you, what are we really doing here? Or how are we focusing on saying, hey, we have this amount of money in the bank, we need to start to reinvest. Well, how do we reinvest? Are we reinvesting in technology? Are we reinvesting in marketing? Are we reinvesting in sales? Are we investing in resources, being people? What does that really look like? How much is that really going to cost? Did we start to, you know, budget for that? All of these are things that, you know, you kind of have to juggle just the same, and really put some focus on. Oh, sorry. Getting a coach or a mentor. So this is year 12 or 13 is going to be. It's probably this year, a couple months ago, where I realized how a coach and a mentor are two different things. I've always heard the mentors, but I've never really understood coach. And when I first heard coach, I always heard life coaches. And they're people who kind of get your life together. You know, they help you to clean your house and, you know, sell things that you don't need anymore, and, you know, figure out what books you need to read and test you on the books that you read, and that's what I thought. And it's a lot more than that. Okay, there's a whole culture behind that, and it's so important. I didn't realize that. My wife actually just started paying for a coach, and when she first came to me and saying, "Hey, this is what it's going to cost," I was like, "For who? For you and I? For how long?" Because it was like thousands, right? And I'm like, "Why?" But then when she broke down what actually was necessary, and then I went and did the research myself, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, there's so much growth potential here, because you have somebody that is paying attention to exactly what you're doing, and they are invested in what you're doing, and then you're invested in them too, because you're paying for their time and their resources and their knowledge and their accountability. But they're every time that you talk to them, and whatever the structure that it is, they're making sure that you're moving forward, and they're seeing the places that you're lacking, or they're seeing the places that you're not wanting to touch your foot in. So they're exposing they're exposing the areas where you're not comfortable, Say, hey, there's growth here, but you have to get out of your comfort zone to do that. And I know you can do it because you've done it in these other areas, because they've experienced that with you. Mentors are fantastic as well, but I look at them more as like a compass, because they've experienced a lot of the things that you've already done. There's somebody who's in your industry that's been there for a while, they're doing it on a larger scale, and they can kind of give you some of the pitfalls and some of the warning signs and tell you where, how to navigate some things. But their time is very limited in terms of what they can give to you. And you respect that for that, and they respect you for that. But a coach is going to be somebody that's going to be there for you, probably on a weekly, if not daily basis, depending on what your engagement level is going to be. So I highly recommend that as well. Okay, so apps. There's a bunch of different apps that we use. These are more the ones that I use, but I definitely wanted to kind of give you guys some of the things that really help us. One of the biggest things is, the first thing is our calendar. We use a combination of iCal and Google Calendar, and we have several calendars within. We have a family calendar, we have a design theory calendar, we have a real estate calendar. We have like all these different calendars. The family calendar is shared between us and the kids. So at any moment, they can go into their devices and they can see exactly where mommy and daddy are. And they can also see when they have things that are associated with the family. So if we're going to do family trips, we're going to go to the park, we're going to go do whatever, homework, whatever that it is, all of that stuff is in the calendar. And for me, if it's not on the calendar, and we've kind of set up our family that way, if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't happen. And we've had a couple times where it's like, somebody comes up to us and says, yeah, can't wait to see you guys this weekend. And I look at my wife like, what are they talking about? And then she's like, oh, I forgot to put it on the calendar. It might not happen because I planned on this, that, and the third. And some of our friends know me, especially for this. I love to double book, and my day would be probably two or three different things that are scheduled, and they're back to back. And any deviation of that or any addition to that is going to rupture the whole day, right? So we have all of that in there, and also for safety reasons too. So maybe I'm out across town doing something, and I said I was going to be there for a couple of hours, and it ends up being like several hours more. The kids or the family hasn't heard from me. They can go in and actually see exactly where I said I was going to be, just in case. And not to say that the worst could happen, but at the very least, at least we know where I should have been or where one of us should be. The next one here is To Do. It's a freemium type of app, but it's essentially an app that you can track all of your tasks, your items, your to-do items, and you can categorize them. And what's helpful with that is that I can share these off. So let's say, for example, we have a to-do for or a category for all the house stuff. Got another one for work stuff, another one for work stuff, and then another one for whatever, right? For maybe her side of things. And so it's like I can go in there, excuse me, I can go in there at any time and see all the different things that I said that I was going to do for the house, and then kind of weigh that against the things that I want to do for design theory and say, okay, I'm going to knock these things out first, and then I'm going to go do these. And what's nice about this too is that I can always go back and see my, what I've accomplished. And for me, because of wanting to check things off, I want to see what I've accomplished, whether it was last week, last year, whatever. And then also, for some of you, if you like to do that, if you're in competition with like your spouse or your partner, it's kind of fun to say, hey, listen, last week I was killing it. I did 20 things. You only did 5, and what's going on? Sleeping over there, The thing that's right after that is Wunderlist. Wunderlist is all the way free, and it's cross-platform. So it's got a desktop client, it's got a mobile client for Android and iOS, and it does a lot of the same things too, where you can create projects, and then projects have different lists, and you have items or notes that you can add in there. You can assign them to people and whatnot, and so that's really, really helpful. I've been using that for many years. The only reason why I moved over to Do is because I ran to the limitations of what one of those can do, so I moved over. The next thing that we use is Slack. We use it here with WordCamp Jacksonville, we use it in Orlando, and we also use it in the different ventures that we have. And so some of our friends, we have a business that we just started, so we have a channel where we're like, instead of us using regular like WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever, let's keep all of this conversation within this platform, so that when we know we're in here or we see a notification, this is all just business, right? The Reminders app, for those of you that have iOS, I mainly use that with the kids. So all of their chores are all in there, and there's recurring chores, and so they have to check them off, and so I can go in and I can see. So when I come downstairs and I see them playing video games, I can just pull out my phone and say, hey man, what's going on? You're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. Oh, yeah. Or at the end of the day, say, hey, great job. Took care of everything that you said that you were supposed to take care of today. I really appreciate that. Here's a little something extra. Great. And we can keep track of that. And they also have a way, a sense of accomplishment as well, because they can, check off something. And this kind of, I feel, kind of builds as they start to grow and they start to, do things in school and whatnot. They understand the importance of responsibility and accountability. The last thing of this, and there's plenty more again, but the last thing of this is TeamViewer. Depending on who you're working with, this is really beneficial because you can remotely connect to another computer and do whatever you need to. So you can take control of that computer with the mouse and open things. And so if you have like a virtual assistant, or maybe you have your partner, or maybe you want to remote back into your computer at home and you're away, you can use this application because it's free. You install it on both machines, and it's secure. It gives you like a password, and each time that you use it, gives you a different password. And so it's nice where you can remotely control and access that data, or show somebody how to do something based on that application. Any questions? Sure.
So I know something that I struggle with is trying to not manage our house like a business. But this doesn't sound like that. But it sounds like you guys manage your house and family like a business.
Yeah.
So where do you feel like you have a good sense of drawing the line there?
Drawing the line between being a business and being like a like a regular family type thing.
Yeah.
So that line comes and goes all day, every day. I'd love to tell you, like, oh, we draw the line. We don't talk about business between 8 and 5. When the kids get home, it's like, no. We're in the car. A lot of times we're talking about meetings or schedules or whatnot. When we're driving to go to dinner, let's say, because both of us are tired and we just want to go treat the kids and go to dinner. So in the meantime, we're going to do that. We've had times where we had our daughter in the car seat because she was still small, and we've taken her and our 2 older kids to Starbucks. Sat our littlest one, because she had just taken a nap, which was great. She was in the car seat. The other 2 kids were on their devices, playing their games, and we were plugged in. We're doing work. The thing that I'll go back to, and I'll say from one of the other slides where I was talking about the defined hours, that's probably where you can really, really do it. And it really depends, because I say everybody's different, every business is different. But by having defined hours, that's probably going to be your best bet, because you're going to say, hey, between every day, and if you have a door, for example, you can even put it on a post-it. Hey, don't come in. If this door is closed, don't come in between these hours and these times. And then when I'm done with that, then you can come in, or you can knock or whatnot. There's even times before we, because now we have an area where it's more open. The kids will come home from school, and they'll come upstairs, and then as soon as they come around, if they see any of us with a headset on, they do that. And they know, okay, they're busy, or they'll just wave, or they'll come over and give us a hug, or maybe they'll write a note, or they'll just text us and say, hey, can we do this, or can we, I need help with this, or whatever. Or we'll just say, hey, 5 minutes, I'm off, and I'll see you. And that might have been outside of the work zone time, but that, we know that's a defined thing, between these times, for sure. And then it just bleeds over sometimes, where you just can't, But good question.
Okay. I'll say really quick, that whole concept in business of performance and evaluation and providing feedback, like that is what happens in a family. But we do try to find ways to make it softer, right? Because, they have chores and they have these expectations, but it's also not like at the end of the week, I'm going to say, how many did you check off? And, you make it a little bit softer, and that's your company culture, your family culture of, how do you build that in? But I will also say that they thrive in the structure of like feeling a little bit in control, because as a kid, you kind of feel like, I don't have any control over everything. You're telling me get in the car, get out the car, come downstairs, But if they see like this is what I can expect today at a certain degree, it helps make them feel empowered. So I don't think there's anything wrong when you're saying like go for it.
5 minutes. Okay. I saw you first.
Well, and I apologize. I don't have a question. I want to play off what she could.
Sure.
I just finished homeschooling 2 kids when my husband was a full-time developer. Running your family like a business, I would highly recommend it. You can run a successful, compassionate business just like you can run a successful, compassionate family. But also including your family in your business gets your kids started in business school at whatever age you started your business. Our girls have had 4 different viable business plans since about the age of 12. And they're things that I would have never considered at their age, all because they're involved in our family and our business. And they have high management skills, they have time management skills. We use a family calendar, it's the thing that saved our marriage. And you're teaching your kids how to manage their time, how to communicate with other people. I mean, having them involved only makes their lives better.
Yeah, I just want to couple that with, you have these talents and these skills, and they see that, and they're your kids. And so seeing that and identifying that and culturing that with them is highly beneficial. Hold that. Yeah.
And you say you work from home.
Yeah.
So as far as meeting clients, you go to their offices or their place of business? Or
Yeah, more times than not.
Yeah,
I don't bring anybody home anymore. Years ago, I used to. It used to be, in my mind, it was okay. Not okay. And so what I do is now we're much more nimble, and so we'll just meet at a neutral spot.
Right.
Sometimes it may be their office, it may be like a coffee shop, it may be it may be at a wine bar. It depends on what the conversation needs to be.
So
definitely a neutral spot.
following up on that, so I have an office, but should I be flexible like that? Because I'm like, meet me at my office. Should I offer?
So it all depends. In my opinion, it depends on how you met the prospective client. If you met them on the go, if they seem to be the type that you may want to more impress them with showing that you have an office, and if the experience coming to the office is so much that it is going to most likely sell more than having an experience at like a neutral area that you don't have any control over things, then I would bet more on the office side, because when they come in, you may have water ready for them, the temperature may be just right, you may have awards and things that they need to see, or plaques on the wall, or pictures with you in different organizations that you've done work with and helped out, and that may be things that could sell, it could help you close. Whereas you have none of that, and then you have distractions, you have all other types of things that can happen when you're at another location that is not yours. So you have some benefits in using that.
Yeah. So on the coaching side, this might be actually a question for both of you. I hear a lot of people talking about mentors, but I agree that every single person who's running their own business or is in a leadership role needs their own coach, number one. But even coaches need coaches. That's a serious deal. But how do you find a coach? That is a hard thing to find. What's your process for finding a coach?
It is. In our case, it's one is a lot of research to even identify if there's coaches that can coach in the way that for your industry.
So be specific about WordPress. So WordPress owners or WordPress businesses, how do you find a coach for that?
So for me, I'd say use your community. Chances are, there's probably 100 plus people that are here, ask around. Say, hey, or there's probably a community forum which you can put it in there. Maybe it's on Facebook. Say, hey, anybody using a business coach that's nearby here? Oh yeah, I use so and so, and I use so and so. That a lot more times that helps, because it's almost like a little of a softer referral. If not, it may be actually Googling. Like, I think that and Nicole can kind of talk about this a little bit more, because she's the first one to start with that. And it may be that. For me, I like to go along the lines of somebody else who's already either used one and they can refer me to their coach. And if that coach is not available, they don't have the capacity, they'll tell me, they probably have a backup coach or whatnot. But that's what's kind of helped for me. Hold that. One more question, I think. Okay.
Going back to what you said about dealing with stress and then how it will manifest even in the moment, so keeping your spouse up to date on what is happening would help provide some resolution and also just some grace in the situation. So in this situation, and maybe you can speak to this, you guys are in it together in the business side of things. Could you speak to a situation where the spouse has a completely separate line of work and maybe doesn't want to hear about your business stress?
Yeah. So I'll give you a really good example. Whenever that stress issue is right up against my stress issue. I'll give her, you know, let's say she's stressed about something and I'm stressed about something. My stress issue is more important in my mind. So I don't want to hear what you have to do. Because in my mind, this is much more important, much more paramount than anything you possibly could be dealing with, right? And that is not fair. It's not right. It's not ethical. Anything like that. I kind of go back to the same thing of what I was saying before. Is like you kind of have to have some communication. That's the only thing that really helps. To where it's like, hey, I may not want to hear what you have to say, but if you can give me 5 minutes, or give me 10 minutes, or can we table this and can we talk about this at this time later on tonight, so that way I can completely come out of where I am, come out of the fog and whatever that I am, and then we can sit down and talk about this. I can give you all of my attention. Because if I give it to you right now, what's happening more times than not, and she'll tell you, she's like, you won't even put your phone down. You won't even look away from the screen. Like, come on. And so instead, I'll either make the conscious effort, because if it comes to mind, I'll just put it down, and I'll slide my seat away. Okay, all right, I'm talking to you, I'm with you, and I'll get into it or whatever, and then I'll say, okay, this may be more than what I have the available time for you right now. I understand where you're at. Let's take this to another time later on, or let me finish this, and then I'm with you. And I'll get away. I'll get up, sit down, be on the couch or whatever, and then we'll go through it.
Just gonna say quickly, there's a difference between a coach and a consultant. So if you're looking for somebody to tell you what to do, give you their professional opinion and guidance, then that would be more of a consultant. And a coach is gonna use more of your brain power to help move you forward. I've got a blog post on that, the difference between a coach, counselor, and consultant. So I will hashtag it on Twitter.
There you go. All right, so I'm out of time, so I am going to try to pack up and hang out over there at the Happiness Bar. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it.